We flew into Saskatoon in a blizzard. The roads were impassable, the schools were closed, snowbanks up to your waist, minus a million. This is a hardy city, but you start to wonder in weather like this, geez, is anybody gonna show up tonight? Come on, it's Saskatoon, it's winter. What do you think? People are gonna stay home? We have a packed house here at the Broadway Theatre. You know, we've been crisscrossing this country this year, telling the stories of Canadians to each other. We've been in Winnipeg, Haida Gwaii, Charlottetown, Fredericton, Montreal. Tonight, we are in the city they call the Paris of the Prairies, a place that keeps getting bigger, but where people don't forget to say hi to someone on the Meewasin Trail or push a stranger's car out of a snowdrift. This is a hub of creativity and culture. It punches above its weight. It's where the ties go beyond the bridges that span the South Saskatchewan River. It's also a city that faces some really tough problems, including a homelessness crisis that feels even more urgent when it's 25 below. So coming up, the brand new mayor of Saskatoon on how she wants to help those who are living on the streets stay safe. We'll also meet some of the people who came here, never left, and are working to make this city even better, including the great authors Yann Martel and Kuipers. We'll hear from people who have been here for generations and the explosion of Indigenous-led tourism in Saskatchewan. And fresh from his tour of grain elevators, where else can you say a tour of grain elevators? The Saskatchewan singer-songwriter Jeffery Straker is our soundtrack tonight. Yes, it's freezing out, and I can tell you that because I walked here from my hotel. But you know what? You would never know it inside this theater. Live from the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, my name's Matt Galloway, and this is The Current. How's everybody doing? Everyone all right? Oh my goodness. We are so happy to be in your town. The kindness that people have shown to us, the welcome that we have had here in the few days that we've been here has been just overwhelming. And it's just wonderful to be here. So thank you very much for welcoming us, and thank you very much for coming here tonight. We have an incredible lineup of guests for you, and we'll start with our musical guest. He grew up in the small town of Punashai, Saskatchewan. His new album is called Great Big Sky. It reflects those prairie roots. Please welcome to the stage of the Broadway Theatre, if you would, Jeffery Straker. A tip of the big hat from Jeffery Straker. How are you, sir?
I'm well.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
What do you love about playing in Saskatoon?
Oh my gosh, I've played so many places in Saskatoon. There's so many wonderful venues here, including this one, but the audiences here, and everyone says this about their audiences, but my favorite audiences in Saskatchewan are here. They listen, they're loving, they give as much as they get. They're perfect people, Matt. They're wonderful. They're wonderful.
That all might be true, but are you just buttering them up because you are from the other city?
I might be from the other city. I know we don't. Down south there. I came up from down south. It got progressively colder as I made the drive.
From Regina.
From Regina, exactly. But I'm delighted to be here. Yeah.
We're not going to hold that against you. Just quickly tell me about the community that you grew up in.
Punashai, Saskatchewan is a small grain farming town, about 3 hours from here, about 300 people. Wonderful place to grow up. I grew up on a farm beside the community. The school I went to was mostly First Nations people, about 95% First Nations. We studied Cree as a second language in our school growing up. But a lot of these small towns over time, like mine, they're really shrinking, and the rural landscape's really changing.
We're going to talk about that and those grain elevators that you've been playing in. Mm-hmm. You have fans across this province. You have fans across the country. You have a fan in King Charles. What is this?
Oh, this is new, Matt. This is new.
The king. The king.
We're not Elvis here. We're talking about like the king, exactly. He sent me a memo via the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan 2 weeks ago when I was on tour in England, and he really appreciated a song on my last record, and he told me that he was touched by the tune, and he also sent me well wishes for my tour. Like I was like, this guy's quite busy, but he took the time to do this, so I was pretty happy with that.
The king has a CD player.
Well, I was like, I knew he had the CD. I knew the CD made its way into his office because I got an email telling me so. And then I was like, yes, but is there a CD player in Buckingham Palace? So luckily he heard it, so it's
Apparently
pretty cool.
so. You're going to play a song first. What are we going to hear?
I'm going to sing a song called Some Say It's Just a Sky. It's a tune I wrote actually when I was away from here. I moved to this little town in Ontario that some of you might have heard of. It's called Toronto. And from there, I finally saw Saskatchewan when I got away from it. And this is about me trying to explain what I believe the sky means to prairie people.
Live at the Broadway Theatre, this is Jeffery Straker, and Some Say It's Just a Sky.
These second-hand clouds from Alberta are blown across Saskatchewan. Remind me how time keeps slipping by, working as heaven's hired gun. I see a portrait of a whisper, canvas stretched 1,000 miles. Some look up and say hallelujah, some say it's just a sky. I moved to the city, my friends would ask, why do you always look up so high? That's where my mind goes when it wanders, you see. Where it went this time or somewhere up there. What is and what ain't can gently collide. Some fill it up with their dreams, some say it's just a sky. Some say it's just a sky. In all that space, the world we know, and the world we want it to be. You can't see it in a photograph, and it never answers directly. But it's taught me that looking up is just kinda like looking deep inside for forgiveness, for favors. Some say it's just a sky. Won't leave me feeling lonely. Remind me how it feels to be found again and teach me about keeping my feet down on the ground and asking why. Some say it's just a sky, some say it's just a sky. And the stars will make you long for all you've left behind. Sunrise will whisper, just give it one more try. Oh, leave me feeling lonely. Remind me how it feels to be found again and teach me about keeping my feet down on the ground and feel me with wonder, asking why. Some say it's just a sky, some say it's just a sky. These second-hand clouds from Alberta are blown across Saskatchewan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeffery Straker. Lucky us to have him here. One of the many things that this city is known for is its incredible literary scene. We got here on Sunday in the midst of that storm, and we're lucky enough to have Guy Vanderhaeg as our tour guide. We had to go to him because he couldn't get out of his driveway because there was so much snow, but we managed to get him out and drive him around. Tonight, we are lucky to have with us two best-selling authors who make their lives here together. He is the author of novels including Self, Beatrice and Virgil, and Life of Pi, winner, of course, of the Booker Prize. She is a best-selling author of 5 novels, 7 for younger readers. Her latest is a guide to writing for young people. It's called Spark. Please welcome to the stage of the Broadway Theatre, Yann Martel and Alice Kuipers.
Thank you.
The story goes, Yann, that you came here as a writer in residence at the public library in Saskatoon, and then you never left. Why did you stay?
I thought I'd only stay a year, and finally what kept me here were the people and the skies. I love the skies here. You know, you look on our license plates, it says Land of Living Skies, which is frankly a lot more poetic than La Belle Province or beautiful British Columbia, which say the same thing. Land of Living Skies is absolutely true. The skies here are extraordinary. First thing I'd suggest someone visiting Saskatoon is just look up. It's the sunniest province in Saskatoon, first of all. We own the sun here. And then when there's no sun,
Of the country that. Yes.
it's cold, who cares? Just dress for it. And then the clouds here are magnificent. Honestly, in the spring and the summer, these cloud ships, they're just extraordinary. So it's that. It's the weather, it's the people, it's that landscape. I like that flatness. It doesn't bother me. To me, it's like a Rothko painting. It's the subtle beauty of lichen. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and it's a lovely city.
What about for you, Alice? I mean, you grew up in London, England.
That's
it's a big
right.
change to come here.
It
Did you
was.
imagine yourself living out in the prairies?
He's laughing because I don't think I even knew where Saskatoon, Saskatchewan was, and my family certainly didn't.
Or even Canada.
Yann can be quite poetic, as you can hear, and he was very convincing that we wanted to build a life here. He had the residency at the public library for that first 9 months, and we met so many people who took time to introduce us to this community. We found ourselves curling in Rosetown, and we ski-doo across the prairies at one point. We did things that we don't do so much now we have children, and decided to see what it would be like if we stayed a little longer. And the longer we stayed, the more enmeshed we became with other people, with all the amazing things there are to do here. And we realized this is actually a great place to raise a family and to write books.
What surprised you most about this place?
Well, -40 is a real thing. Cowboys are also real. I didn't know that either, growing up in London. Like, there were things that were surprising. But I think, too, that what surprised me is how you can step outside and say hi to someone you know within a couple minutes. But also, every time you go somewhere, and tonight is a good example, there's lots of people I know here, lots of people I love in this room, and lots of people I've never seen before, because it's got that big city, small city feeling. So there's always something really fun happening. And then there's also, you can step outside and someone will help you snow blow all that snow away, right?
What about, I mean, I talked about the literary scene in the city, Yann. What is that about? Guy Vanderhaeg was speaking about that earlier, and that there's a long tradition of that, of this city supporting writers. And it's not just writers, but writers in particular seem to get some sort of injection, this little boost from the town. What is that about, do you think?
Well, I think the fact that it's so isolated means there's lots of time to spend with other people, and that will yield stories. I think I read somewhere about, because there are no mountains, the highest thing on the prairie is someone standing. And so you focus on that. You focus on the thing that's tallest, that's the person next to you, maybe, if they're taller. And but I think it's a way of creating a community, is to create stories. I think a lot of places that are isolated generate stories. Because, you know, if no one else will tell you, if you don't tell your own stories, no one else will. So I think it's a product of the isolation, the ferocious weather, that's quite exhilarating, and it creates community because you're indoors. But you're right, there is a peculiar, strong literary tradition in the prairies that's very, very, very strong. Also a strong painterly tradition, because the light is so amazing, it's so bright and changing. It's like the south of France, it's a beautiful light. There's also a strong visual arts tradition here too. The two go hand in hand.
Alice, how has the landscape filtered into your writing?
Well, when I first came here, I didn't really think about setting at all. In fact, I discussed with writer David Carpenter how setting just wasn't important. My first book is written with no setting. It's written on a fridge door. And then as I lived here longer and got to know this territory, Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Métis, the storytelling culture, traditions, the people who live here, the way people look at the land. The latest book I've written, the editor, who just read it and said nice things, which is exciting, said that it's imbued with a sense of place, a place she's never known. And so I think it's slowly shifted and really filtered through to everything I'm doing.
You surprised by that?
Very. I'm endlessly surprised by stuff. Yeah. I find lots of things surprising about this place. I've learned to do something that I call micro-traveling. With 4 kids, it's not as easy to jump on a plane, although we still do, luckily. But just taking time to pay attention to that changing, shifting landscape, like you will have seen as you were running along the trails, which I was very impressed by, that you ran at -20 today or whatever.
Perhaps not the smartest thing I've ever done.
But yeah, to know that you've done that, like to see that landscape, to know there was a coyote on the trail just the day before, like it's really interesting when you pay attention to this.
Yeah. This is a city, I mean, we said earlier on that there's so much energy here. People are working toward the idea of the city, but it's also a city that faces some big, wicked problems. And this is, in addition to being here, this is something that you've engaged with, Yann. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, the homelessness crisis, we talked about it on our program at length, it becomes much more acute when it is so cold and you see people who are just struggling to get by when you know that you can go somewhere warm and they can't. How have you engaged with that?
I'll say that's another thing that, in a sense, oddly enough, is attractive about Saskatoon, is that because it's a town of only 300,000, you see everything, you live everything. It is a real community. So the homelessness challenge is not something far away, you know, on the other side of the city. It's prevalent. We see it everywhere. You go to the Meewasin where you see coyotes, you also see homeless people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the ferocious weather means it really matters to us because people die. And it's the result of a racist cleavage here. Also, this is a wonderful place. It's also a terribly racist place. And you can't escape that. And nor should you want to. We have to live the ugliness of our societies to get through them. And so it's present there. And yeah, work needs to be done. It's getting worse. And these are fellow citizens who are less lucky than us. And so, yeah, it's something that both Alice and I have been involved with through an organization called Sanctum, for example, because it's not something that you can just wish away. You have to find concrete solutions for these fellow citizens who are far less lucky than us.
What do you want the rest of the country to know about this place? I keep asking people that, and part of the reason that we come out to do events like this is to tell people about a place that they might not know about or that they have an idea of that maybe should be interrogated. What do you think the rest of the country should know about this city?
Well, you know, when I first moved here, the number of people who would ask me, why do you live in Saskatoon? And they were obviously from Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver. And I'd say, why do you live in your place where you have to endlessly commute? You don't know your neighbors. The quality of life here, you know, Saskatoon is like a decathlete. You know, the decathlete is not the best at any single discipline, but overall it's good enough to win a gold medal at the Olympics.
That's fantastic.
So, for example, Little Saskatoon, middle of nowhere, has the largest art gallery between Winnipeg and Vancouver, the Remy. Has a terrific Ukrainian museum. There's a large Ukrainian population here. Terrific Ukrainian museum. There's wonderful theater here. At the university, at the refinery, at the Persephone, there's wonderful theater. The SSO, middle of nowhere, the Saskatoon Symphony Orchestra pulls way above its weight. So there's a lot here.
Alice, what's your favorite place? You talk about micro-traveling. Where's the place that you go in the city to feel like yourself, to feel like you have that connection with this town?
Well, some of the places I love to go, Yann has mentioned. I always like to go to Delish, the coffee shop just by our house, to take a moment to go right. Warnaskamen is a World Heritage Site, so it's a little bit more of a drive, but it's worth it. And I think that for me, one of the places that I always like to take and spend time is actually just walking through the Broadway district and seeing the new stores coming and going and just spending time with the kids. We were there just yesterday, the day before, thinking about Christmas presents and just seeing the energy that continues in this place, in this building right here. We've been to loads of things. So it's just really, there's lots of choices.
There's a lot of energy in this city. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yann Martel and Alice Kuipers, best-selling authors, philanthropists, and as you heard, proud Saskatooners. We have a terrific audience here tonight, and we're going to meet some people. We talked about those wicked issues. The mayor is going to have those on her plate, and she'll be here with us in just a few minutes to talk about how she's going to tackle some of those big issues. But we want to say hello to some of the folks who are here with us in the audience. Yann mentioned the Ramey Modern, which is an incredible art museum on the river. Michelle Jakes is the chief curator of that museum and is with us in the audience somewhere. Michelle, hi.
Hello.
Brand new recipient of a Governor General's Award as well. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you love about this town?
Well, I have to admit that I had never been to Saskatoon before coming for my interview at Ramey Modern in 2020. And it was definitely Ramey Modern that sucked me in right away. But having arrived here in the middle of a polar vortex, a couple of months later, I realized that I was going to have to find some inside activities to do. And I settled on thrifting.
Oh.
Saskatoon is a really great thrifting town. And as well as, you know, the sort of charity shops, I like to go to the Indefinite Article and Past and Present. And
do you have secret spots that you won't disclose to an audience, either here in Broadway or across the country listening on CBC Radio?
well, the interesting thing about Saskatoon's antique stores and thrift stores is that they are so layered with stuff that I can have secrets in them, even though everybody knows about the store. So, for instance, maybe about 18 months ago, I was at the Indefinite Article and bought this beautiful little piece of Swedish glass shaped like a shell. And I always had this sense that it needed to be in a pair. And so I spent 18 months searching on eBay, on Kijiji, like just Googling all of the time, trying to find another one. And it seems to be quite unique. But because I go to the thrift shops, you know, maybe every few Saturdays and just sort of walk around and look at every shelf, 18 months later, a little Swedish glass shell appeared. So now I have the pair. And like this is actually a hobby that I developed in Victoria. But I would say that the stores in Victoria are very curated. You know, you go to the mid-century store or you go to the store with the old cameras. And I just love that everything here is a mishmash and that you're forced to sort of look through all of these layers of history to find that gem. I think it's improved my eye as a curator.
I'm glad the polar vortex didn't scare you off. The city is better for you being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also with us here, one of the scientific leaders in Saskatoon, Ingrid Pickering, is Chief Science Officer at Canadian Light Source, which is Canada's only synchrotron. Ingrid, hi.
Hi, Matt.
What is that?
Good question. A synchrotron is a big science facility, and so it's a national science facility here in Saskatoon on the University of Saskatchewan campus, and it's a big machine. It's about the size of a hockey rink, to use a really Canadian symbol, and it is a big machine for making light, incredibly bright light, in particular X-rays, which scientists like me use to discover things about materials that you can't discover anywhere else in Canada.
In addition to having that at your disposal, what do you love about being here in Saskatoon?
I want to echo what other people have said about community and how important the community is here. I've been here, although I've been Chief Science Officer at the Canadian Light Source for only 3 months, I've been here for more than 2 decades. And you can hear from my accent, I'm not from around here. Like Alice, I also started in England. Then I lived in the States for quite a long time. I actually lived in California for 11 years, and then I moved from California to Saskatchewan. And a lot of people, yes, were curious about that and why I would do that. But it was actually easy to answer because I came, first of all, for a great position at the university as a research chair, but then I came because of the Canadian Light Source and the chance to be close to that. So that is why I came. I've stayed because of the wonderful community that's here. And my community, outside of work and family, is actually the church that I belong to, Emmanuel Anglican Church, which is actually home of the refinery that Yann mentioned, and so has a small fringe theatre opportunity there. We also have a lot of classes for the community, which go from art classes to beading, led by Indigenous artists, to spiritual flourishing. I sing in the choir at the church, and I love to be part of a community which is welcoming and inclusive of all.
Fantastic. I love hearing people talk about home and what they love about home. Thank you very much. Just really quickly, we're going to hear from 2 other people who are new-ish to this city. This is a great sports city as well. Sure, Regina has the Riders, but Saskatoon has the Rush. If you have never seen lacrosse before, lacrosse is Canada's national game, and a live lacrosse game is unreal. I say this from some experience, having seen a bunch of them over my time. We have 2 members of the city's professional lacrosse team, Brock Haley and Levi Anderson. They are new to this city. Give them a warm welcome. Levi, what do you love about Saskatoon so far?
Hi, how's it going? I'd like to say the fans have been amazing so far. In the first few weeks we've been here, we've had the ability to communicate with the fans at our first scrimmage, as well as the community. They've immersed us very, very well, and just how kind everyone's been. You know, it's nice to be home again. And that's definitely what I would say.
That's great. Brock, when you go out and you're wearing Rush gear, what happens? Do people clock you and realize who you are and what you're representing?
I mean, funny enough, I actually just got this stuff a couple days ago, so it's about the first time I've been wearing Rush stuff, but yeah, hopefully.
Just wait to be mobbed.
Yeah.
So far, how's Saskatoon treating you?
Good. I went to school in Vermont, so I'm pretty used to the weather. Not minus 40, but pretty close too. Got a dog here with me as well, so I was fortunate enough to bring him here with me from Toronto. So yeah.
For people who have never seen lacrosse live, how would you describe what it's like?
It's fast, physical. You might hear some stuff on the floor you don't want to hear, but yeah. Other than that, just it's a fun time. It's a good atmosphere, and yeah.
Excellent. Levi, how are you feeling about the season?
Very excited. It's been a long time coming for a lot of us. First year's coming to the league. We're very excited. We grew up watching this sport for years, and it's been a dream for us to one day play in the NLL, and we're very excited to start next week.
Make the pitch for people to come out. Why should people come and see you?
Cheap beer.
Cheap beer. The man knows his audience.
I would say just the atmosphere too. People love lacrosse here, and the guys playing it love it just as much. It's a fun crowd. It's very versatile. It's very fast. I think it's the fastest sport on 2 feet. The competitiveness is amazing, and just to see 2 teams grind it out, I think is something we can all kind of have fun watching. So.
And cheap beer.
Yeah.
Thank you both, and good luck. Brock Haley and Levi Anderson of the Rush. We're going to take a quick break for the CBC News. Don't go anywhere. We have more music from Jeffery Straker, plus my conversation with the brand new mayor of Saskatoon, live in Saskatoon at the Broadway Theatre. My name's Matt Galloway. This is The Current. We're back in 6 minutes. Stick around. Hello, I'm Matt Galloway. You're listening to a special edition of The Current, live from the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon. We have a great audience here tonight. Lots to get to over the next hour, including the new mayor of Saskatoon and two of the funniest women in town, Dakota Ray Hebert and Farideh. But please, first, welcome back to our stage our musical guest, Jeffery Straker. What are you going to play for us?
Hey, I'm going to play a song of mine. It's called More Than 2x4s and Timber, Matt. And it's a tune I wrote. I'm taking people out of the city now. We're going out to the countryside, out in the prairies. It's a song about sort of the fall of the grain elevators and the disappearance from the prairie topography.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that because there are people elsewhere in the country who would be like, A, what's a grain elevator? And B, what should we know about the fall of the grain elevator? That sounds like drama. But play this tune for us. This is Jeffery Straker and More Than 2x4s and Timber.
They drove for miles from every corner of the countryside. Tomorrow would be too late, so they came to see it just one last time. There was a TV camera there by the railroad tracks. Some folks were pointing, looking up at it, but most were looking back. Used to be 3 grocery stores in town. There's just one left. Padlocked the doors, board windows up, placed a little afraid at the edges. And that church where they'd sing on Sundays long since closed. Now they gathered here to struggle with holding on, or once again letting go. It was so much more than 2x4s and timber. They had less grain elevator. Was coming down today under their breath. People said goodbye. They tried their best to take it all in stride. They just got used to doing it that way. For years that prairie skyscraper stood guard at the end of Main Street. Farmers measuring luck by the bushel or trucks of what they'd reap. But the bottom line, nickels and dimes and progress had their say. They knew if you weren't from around here, it wouldn't really matter anyway. We were so much more than 2x4s and timber. They had less grain elevator. Was coming down today under their breath. People said goodbye. They tried their best to take it all in stride. They just got used to doing it that way. The bulldozer kept trying, but had a hard time getting her to move. Though no one said it, it's almost like they knew she had a point to prove. An old couple looking on said, well, ain't that just how it goes? Nothing lasts forever. Kinda clear their throats. Used to mean from a distance. We're heading somewhere when heading here. Now more than the last grain elevator was disappearing. It was so much more than 2x4s and timber. They had less grain elevator. Was coming down today under their breath. People said goodbye. They tried their best to take it all in stride.
It's Jeffery Straker, live at the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon. More than 2x4s in timber. There's that line in the song, if you weren't from here, it wouldn't mean anything anyway.
Yeah.
For people who aren't from this province, what have those grain elevators meant to Saskatchewan?
Well, I can speak obviously from my perspective. I mean, I fell in love with them from an early age growing up in a small town, and every small town in Saskatchewan had these things. And they stuck up on the horizon as you were driving around Saskatchewan. The name of the town was on the side. And you know, it was kind of something to see when you went for a drive in a way in Saskatchewan, you know. And one of my first jobs ever was cleaning the boot of one of these old elevators. All the dust would settle to the bottom, and I had this job at 14 years old, and I would go down this deep hole with this bucket and down a ladder and bring up buckets full of dust. And I'm not Catholic, but I believe I discovered purgatory. Like it's there, so you're welcome. I found it, but when these things went up, you know, at the turn of the century, it signaled to the surrounding area. It's like, we're a community. We're doing this together. We're giving this our college try. We're gonna give this a go. And it was the heart of the community, and they were a real going concern for a while. They were the economic hub of those places, and now they're coming down. They peaked in the 50s. There were 3,000 of them. These iconic 30,000 bushel grain elevators, and today there's less than 175.
What is left, or what is lost when there's only that number left?
To me, they symbolize not just the elevator itself is going, but these small towns are going, and the hearts of these small towns are going. A lot of them are shrinking before our very eyes, and it's a real shift going on in Saskatchewan, you know. And you know, when they went up, it was all this hope, and as they're coming down, what I hoped to try to ask in that question was, now what?
Yeah. That's a tradition in Saskatchewan. There's another one that you were involved in, not just performing in grain elevators. Tell me a little about the Telemiracle.
Telemiracle is a cause near and dear to my heart. It's a telethon, Matt. It's a telethon. People across the country are going to be saying they have a telethon in Saskatchewan. What are they, in 1970? And we're proud of it.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
And it's been going on for 49 years. This is the 49th year coming up this year in March 1 and 2, 2025. And it's put on, I have to mention, by the Kinsmen and Kinettes of Saskatchewan. And they've been doing this for all these years, and they raise money through a 20-hour telethon, and of course a bunch of donations, corporate donations, etc. But these people phoning in for 20 hours and giving only because they can. That's so Saskatchewan. No one's making them do it. They're giving because they can, and all the money stays in Saskatchewan, and it helps people in Saskatchewan get access to medically related travel or to get medical devices, stuff that Medicare doesn't cover. And people do it because they know they're making a difference in their community. It's so beautiful, Matt.
That's lovely. That ties into the next song you're going to play.
It does.
Yes.
And I'm proud to say I've been a host and performer on that telethon for the last 14 years. And the part of the telethon is about 70 auditioned talent from small towns across Saskatchewan, communities across Saskatchewan come and perform on the telethon. I am from a small town, as you mentioned, it's called Punisha, and I wrote a song about being from this place. It's called One Foot on Main Street. I left the community, you know, a lot of years ago to go and explore the world, but there's a part of that town that remains with me forever, and I tried to explain it in this tune.
Let's have a listen.
I would hear the horn blowing on the CN train, wave from my bike as a kid. Dream about where it could take me. I knew every house and every face inside. No one locked their door. Think about that place all the time. And coffee row and twirling stools at the Chinese cafe. They'd solve the world's problems before 9 o'clock each day. The past is full of diamonds we once thought were gold. Mama shouting from front porches, come for supper before it gets cold. I grew up in a small town, I'm a small town at heart. I moved to the city, but school, learning how to make mistakes. And damn it, we were cool, and getting out was on our minds. Yeah, it seemed like only somewhere else where there were fortunes to find. 17 loaded up the hatchback. Come back once a year at Christmas time to see Mom and Dad. I grew up in a small town. I'm a small town at heart. I moved to the city, but deep down I've not gone that far. No matter where my boots take me, I grew up in a small town, and I still got one foot on Main Street. Headed back the other day, I took a drive, and Grandma passed away, and we said our goodbyes. Potholes and peeling paint, it seemed better days. Some would never see the beauty in this place. And I heard the horn blowing on the CN train, and I was a kid on a bike. Those were simpler days. I used to know every house and every face inside. I wonder if they locked their doors. Think about that place all the time. I grew up in a small town. I'm a small town at heart. I moved to the city, but deep down I've not gone that far. No matter where my boots take me, I grew up in a small town, and I still got one foot on Main Street.
Jeffery Straker, live at the Broadway Theatre, 1 foot on Main Street. Thank you very much. We are live in Saskatoon, and this is, as you've heard over the course of this evening, a great place. People are plugged into this town. There's a sense of community here. They want to make their city an even better place. There are some big problems that are here in this town as well, and it is the job of my next guest to try to tackle them. Joining us now on stage, the new mayor-elect of Saskatoon, Cynthia Block. Congratulations, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
We're really
I actually
glad.
just really want to welcome you and your crew to Canada's best city. We are charming, and you are clearly seeing that in your guests this evening.
It's been wonderful to be here, and people have been so kind and generous and warm in their welcome. It's been great.
That's who we are.
Tell me a little bit about why you wanted this job.
I wanted this job to make a difference. I mean, I've been serving on my community in many ways throughout my lifetime, really. I was a journalist for a long time in the city, and I was a small business owner. I've served on many volunteer committees and events. But I think foundationally, I want to make sure that our city moves forward. I think that we have an incredible opportunity to show the rest of the prairies a really bright North Star, even as we have come through some very difficult times, not just in our city, but in cities right across Canada who are facing homelessness and community safety issues and affordability. And I foundationally want to work on those things.
Can I ask you about public service and what inspired you to get into public service? I mean, part of this is about, one of our heroes, somebody I know well, Adrienne Clarkson, and the inspiration that she provided as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm so glad you asked that question. I was in grade 8, and it was about the time when people start to ask you what you're going to do with the rest of your life, which is very daunting and scary. And there was a show called The Fifth Estate on CBC. Yes. And this beautiful woman was doing this news magazine program, relaying back to the residents the world around them, like telling Canada, this is what's going on in your country. And I thought to myself, that's it. That is exactly what I want to do. And that sort of, I think, launched my sort of efforts to come from a small, I'm a farm girl as well, just like Jeffery. And we know that it isn't always expected that people that come from small places can do bigger things. And so sometimes folks weren't really sure that I could do it. And truly that just made me more determined.
What about why you wanted to do it? And I ask you this just because your life has been really difficult for the last couple of years, in tragedy and losing your husband. And a lot of people in that situation would pull back. You're in a very public role, and you didn't pull back. You kind of went the other direction. Why did you want to do that? Especially now, given the challenges we're going to talk about in the city.
Well, I'll say I've been on the job officially, actually, since last Wednesday. I'm actually the mayor, which I still can't believe. But literally after a very long night of the election and getting up the next day and obviously many interviews, I was in the city manager's office and we were already rolling up our sleeves and trying to figure this out. I think what foundationally drives me is honestly in my heart to serve. I care about how we move forward as a people all together. But I think it's not actually unlike being in the news. Like, you do the news and sometimes you have to face some very difficult things. But it's in those moments where you have the opportunity to shine.
So I heard you on Saskatoon Morning talking to Stephanie, and you said the morning after the election on very little sleep, that your top priority, your key priority is homelessness. We have seen this, I mean, we arrived in the middle of a snowstorm, and it's been frigidly cold outside over the last couple of days. And people, as we've said, are just trying to get by. The shelters are full, warming spots are full. How do you see the homelessness crisis in this city right now?
Well, right now, I woke up this morning to a record number of people who are staying in the warming shelter. We've never had 260 people that needed shelter on one frigid, cold night, and this is just the start of winter here. That is deeply concerning, and that warming center, it just seems everything that we've tried to do as cities across the country, it accelerates at a pace where policymakers and service providers just can't keep pace. My goal is to get ahead of this. I think we need residents and businesses at the table to help us figure out that way forward, so we're being more proactive. And I think what gives me energy and optimism is the people of this city who are stepping up and asking how they can help. If it was not for a lot of private donations and the United Way and the Community Foundation, we would have potentially had a disaster on our hands. I'm not sure how we could have pushed forward the amount that was needed at a time where we were just struggling to find even a place for people to be. And thanks to the generosity of this community, we are able to move forward with the warming center and a few other things. And I will continue. I was at the Throne speech in Regina yesterday, trying really hard to figure out ways that we can work together to make sure that we are not just getting by, but actually getting to the other side.
But people will look at you and look at government and say, what is government either doing or doing wrong such that this crisis is... And it's not just here. To your point, it's across the country, but it's exploding. There are encampments coast to coast to coast in big cities and small towns. The population of homeless folks in this city has more than doubled, right? So what are we doing wrong, do you think?
Well, I think we're being incremental, and I think that we have to be like 100% full force ahead. And
and that looks like what? What does that mean?
Well, the honest answer, I think probably one of the best answers, I was at a conference on Friday and listened to a man who was homeless from the age of 12. Obviously, found a way forward and has become, a successful advocate for people who are homeless in ways that I think are quite amazing, really. But he said this. Solving homelessness is not complex. It's just hard. Complex means that we don't actually know what we need to do to help people, and that's not true. What we need is money. We need a lot of investment to make sure that we are adequately helping people to have options to make sure that they can get off the streets into safe housing and transition out of homelessness.
So where is that money? You were at the throne speech yesterday. Is that money coming from the provincial government?
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. Is your sense that that money is going to come? I mean, one of the things we heard in that throne speech was the Premier saying we need to do better. And he was talking about a number of different things, education and other matters, but is tackling this crisis, which, to your point, winter's just beginning. Is your sense that that money is going to come in a measurable way?
What I have is a sense from this city that we absolutely need to move forward. We are right now, I think, trying to figure out a plan, like I said, with residents and businesses at the table, alongside the important work of our service providers and fire and police.
I mean, one of the things we've heard from advocates who are working on the front lines is the need for transitional housing. We heard that again and again and again from people. What would transitional housing mean?
Well, actually, literally the day after, it was after the inauguration. I went to actually help. What do you call that thing with the shovel? I haven't had to do that before.
Oh, digging so like a groundbreaking ceremony.
A groundbreaking ceremony. That's what you
all
call
the things the lingo
all
you
the
have to
things
learn now
lingo
in this
I have
office.
to learn. A new transitional home in the Kensington neighborhood that I think is going to be the start of how we're moving forward with our housing accelerator dollars that our city has accepted, and we are moving aggressively. I mean, because homelessness. Okay, it was a good plan. And I mean, just foundationally, people need to be housed. That is, I think, the period. That is what we have to do. And figuring out homelessness, we still also have to figure out those other pieces of the housing continuum, affordable housing, attainable housing, and we're working on it. But we need to work right now to make sure that we are taking care of the front lines of homelessness.
How do you ensure that people? I mean, we've heard resistance from neighborhoods. We spoke with somebody yesterday who is now on council, who in some ways led a campaign to have a shelter in his neighborhood closed down and moved to a different neighborhood because he feels it's not appropriate in that neighborhood, that it has lowered his property values, that it has created crime and disorder he believes in the community. How do you deal with the pushback when people say we need housing, but we don't want the housing here?
I'll just say again, Matt, that I think the critical difference between the way forward and where we've been is that we have relied on governments to solve our problems, and we need our community with us. And I think that foundationally means understanding why homeless shelters are needed, but also how do we teach and learn together as a whole community about what's possible and what's not possible. We have homeless facilities all across the city, but this one shelter is far larger. And what can we learn from that in terms of advocating for a better way forward? What kinds of supports can we put in place to ensure that people who are unhoused in and around sheltering spaces are safe, but also their neighbors? And these are the things that residents on every doorstep in every neighborhood across this city have been asking us.
The estimate is that 90% of people experiencing homelessness in Saskatoon are Indigenous. Why is there so much inequality in the city right now?
Oh, I mean, it's colonialism. It's systemic barriers. I mean, it's the gauntlet of the sad story of a part of the history of Canada that we definitely need to face.
That number is staggering. 90% of the people who are out on the streets are Indigenous.
Right, and so another really big piece of figuring this out is ensuring that we have Indigenous people and people with lived experience at the table to help us learn what is the best way forward. What I'm learning actually from many Indigenous elders and friends in our community is just that, and honestly, also from newcomers, people that just don't feel that they're seen, like they don't feel that they belong. And I'm really hoping that if we have that concerted effort as a city council and working closely with our Indigenous relatives and leadership, that we can find a way forward where we are, not just putting words to it or meeting to meet or any of those kinds of things, but truly actually affecting change. I think sounds like a also like something that isn't real, and how do we figure it out? I guess what I'm saying is that that part is hard. But I do know this, that when we build those relationships and we foundationally listen to what they are saying to us, we will find better ways forward.
What's the message, do you think, to the rest of the country that Saskatoon, what can this place teach other communities, do you think?
I think we're a resilient people. I think that Saskatoon, for all of its struggles, and Saskatoon, like every other city in Canada, is on the front lines of a crisis that it doesn't have all the tools to solve. But what we do have is a lot of determination. If I know one thing about this city, we're a city that looks after each other, and we pull off, like we punch above our weight, like you said, and we never give up. And I'll just continue to believe that if we work together, that there is nothing we can't achieve or overcome.
I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's the new mayor of Saskatoon, Cynthia Block. Thank you very much. Our next guest here on stage at the Broadway Theatre is a rising comedy star in Saskatoon. She was part of Just for Laughs' New Face of Comedy showcase last year. You've seen her on the CBC comedy Run the Burbs. She's the proprietor of a brand new comedy club and gallery here in town called the Art Bar. We're lucky to have her. Please welcome to the stage Dakota Ray Hebert.
Thank you so much for having me. Howdly doodly, Matt. How's it going?
I'm really great. I'm better at having you here. This is really good. I'm super excited to have you here. Tell me about, you have this comedy album coming out. It's called Trailer Treasure.
Trailer Treasure.
What's that all about?
It's about growing up in the trailer park in Meadow Lake. What? Represent Clark Crescent. It's my second comedy album, Trailer Treasure. And it was originally written because, so I wrote my first album, I'm just plugging stuff now.
Please do.
My first album is called I'll Give You an Indian Act. Thank you, yeah. A little bit spicy, I was mad. And then I was like, okay, I recorded it in the can, done. I'm taking a break. I'm not funny anymore. And then Just for Laughs called, and they were like, can you headline in Toronto at Just for Laughs Toronto this September? And I said, absolutely. I had to write a whole hour. And that's kind of what Trailer Treasure is. It's a story of how, how I got out of the trailer park, went back in, then got out again, and into the big city of Saskatoon. And just been giving her, you know. It's
the best answer. What was it like growing up in the trailer park?
In the trailer park? You gotta hear my album. It was fun. I mean, it has its pros, it has its cons. It's like a community within a small community. But all my friends were outside. What I used to do is it's Clark Crescent, but I used to add an E to the end of Clark so it looked fancy. So my friends' parents would come pick them up. Yeah, it was Clark Crescent, but then they were like, what is this? It was fun. It was just like, you know, just growing up in any small town in Saskatchewan, lots of bike riding around.
How do you think that shapes the comedy that you do now?
It's, I think, in a relatable sense. There was a moment in time, like an identity crisis, where I wanted to be like the big name comedy stars who can reach to a lot of people in big cities. They have that kind of broader comedy, and that's what I was trying to do. But then I realized that I can do that by touching on my origins, touching on small towns, touching on that relatability. And then it's also kind of funny too when you're like, oh, has this ever happened to you? And it hasn't. You know, like there's things like that. And I think Saskatchewanians are just inherently really funny people. Like we're funny people and we're kind of funny people. You know, like,
what is that about though? I mean, there's some really funny people that come out of this province. Like, what is that?
What? Because it gets to like minus 50, Matt, and we get snowed into our houses and we get weird. We make our own vocabulary. We say things like bunny hug, and we say things like gitch, and we say things like Vico, you know? We make up our own language, and that's kind of, you know, I'm down with it.
You now have a place where people can come and showcase their funny.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the art bar.
So Art Bar is actually my sweetheart's vision. I just kind of hijacked it. But it was this dream that he'd had to have a place where we could showcase all kinds of art. And we were both stand-up comedians, so of course we primarily do comedy. We even have a brick background in our main stage space. We fought the ground on that sucker, but it's authentic. And we also have a front space for the art gallery and a front of house where we have our open mics for stand-up and for poetry. And it's been really exciting. We don't even have a sign up, so it kind of seems like a speakeasy, but it's all legit.
You seem very insistent in saying that.
Yeah, it's we have to have food that we prepare in the venue in order to get our tavern liquor license, and it's literally called the SLGA compliant meal. It's a hungry man we put in a microwave. It's $15.
Have you sold any? No.
What's that?
No, you don't. Nobody wants it though, right?
No, we mean maybe.
But just in case.
Yeah, just in case. It's there for you.
Aside from going to the art bar, if people visit this fine city, where should they go? Play tour guide.
That's something I wanted to touch on earlier too. We were talking about theaters, and one of them is near and dear to my heart. Gordon Atusis Naganyawan Theatre. And they're an Indigenous operated, they're just incredible, and they're actually going to be performing here next month. So get your tickets, support, and yeah, they gotta check that out for sure. I'm a big fan of 9 Mile Legacy Brewing. I don't know, can I big ups a beer? Is that too Saskatchewan? But I think big ups to 9 Mile. They're incredible partners who really believe in the art scene and really believe in the community as well. I'm based in Riversdale, so come on down to Riversdale. That's where I want to say. Come on down. We got lots of cool stuff happening there. Lots of delicious food. You got to try Bistro on B before you go. Oh my God, they make a brisket. I can't even. I'm thinking about brisket.
Why are you telling me this now?
I don't know, I'm sorry. Oh man, you got to get that at Hometown Diner too. There's lots of good eats. They're low key. Oh, okay. I know I'm just listing restaurants. Come on down to Riversdale.
If somebody, just finally before I let you go, if somebody is listening to this and they have an idea of what this city is, but maybe they're wrong. What do you think people don't get about Saskatoon?
Because it's not a Toronto or a Vancouver, I think people it's a flyover or drive-through place, and when they get here, they're kind of like, oh my God, this is wonderful. There's so much art scene, there's so much culture, there's such a lovely nightlife too. There's something for everyone here, and I think that's what's really exciting. And just to plug Art Bar one more time, we've got comics from out of town that are now booking with us that normally would just be driving through the city, and now we're getting a nice little circuit with the Exchange in Regina happening, and it's really exciting to be a part of, and it's really exciting to see how well received and accepted it is. Saskatoon loves the arts, and the arts love Saskatoon.
And people love you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man. People love
Dakota
you.
Ray Hebert. She's got a brand new comedy album called Trailer Treasure. Do not go anywhere. Coming up in 90 seconds, we have Farideh coming up, plus you're going to hear about some amazing Indigenous-led travel experiences you can have right across this province. My name is Matt Galloway, live at the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. This is a special edition of The Current, back in 90 seconds. Stick around. Hello, I'm Matt Galloway. This is a special edition of The Current. We are live in Saskatoon at the Broadway Theatre. Hello, everyone. So we've had some great people here with us on stage. We're gonna crank things up. Our next guest is a big star here in Saskatoon and beyond. Please put your hands together. Maybe you want to dance as well for Farideh.
Morning sickness, endometriosis, menopause, migraines, PCOS. Happening to your body, we don't know, because we've never really studied the female body. Say it's all in my head, but the research is quite spotty.
How are you?
So good.
People who are listening can't see what you did, and what you're wearing.
It's a sunglasses, but it's like your full face. My husband says that makes me look like a security camera.
It's a good look.
Thank you.
That tune, I mean, what is it? 3 million views on TikTok?
Yeah, and 17 million on Instagram.
What is it like to be a viral star on the internet? I don't know anything about these things.
Well, I would say a little overwhelming,
Really?
honestly.
Is it?
You know, like Maria Shriver posted it and was like, "This should be a White House song for like the Women's Health Initiative." And I was like, I just put my phone down and I was like, I don't even know how to feel about that.
The tune is called Female Body. Tell me about it.
The song is about, the punchline is basically I list many conditions that affect women, and then I'm like, because they've never really studied the female body. And I don't know if it's funny, it's just true. And it's basically like, the research is, like they didn't really actually have to include women in research studies until 1993. So personally what happened to me is that I needed to take my husband to the hospital, and he was having a hard time grabbing stuff. He kind of had a hard time going up the stairs, and I was like, we have to go to the hospital. He's like, no, I don't think so. I was like, we will. And I was preparing for him to be treated like a woman. And I thought,
and which is?
They're not going to believe you. He's going to send them home. But Matt, you know, it's like when he walked through those doors, it's like he had Beyonce's wind machine on him. All those nurses were like, he looks like our son. They like got him an emergency bed. Hundreds of people are waiting. All of them women. And they're like, we know exactly all the tests to run. We're so glad you're here. At that point, I'm like, leave him alone. He's fine. It's a mistake. What kind of treatment is? And then I was like, oh, they just know what to do with his body. And that's one of the inspirations for Female Body.
Are you surprised that it has become, I mean, not just Maria Shriver, but that many people have leaned into this and understood what the message is of the tune?
Great question. Usually with my songs, I'll have an idea of like, oh, this one's gonna hit, and then it bombs, and then there's ones that are a surprise. But I have also learned that like, it seems like comedy is also about like pressing a rage button. And I know that I have lots of friends with endometriosis who have like had to advocate for themselves and not been heard and
not believed.
Yeah, exactly. Or friends with migraines, and so I kind of thought in my heart like, this is something I know women are talking to each other about, and that they're angry. So I'll give them a banger.
And you did.
Yeah.
Tell me about, we've been talking about writing, we've been talking about visual art in the city. What's it like to be a musician? People know you from this, people know you from Rosie and the Rivers as well. What is it like to be a musician in this town? How does the city support music?
Oh, my father is a musician, so I feel like I'm a second generation of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan's music scene. I like grew up there's a Ness Creek Music Festival. Thank you. Yeah, they're an incredible, it's like 3 hours up north in the bush, and it's a festival, but my dad played there every year, so I had the chance to like be part of that and like meet other musicians and have the opportunity to play this festival. And so the audience, like Saskatoon loves live music. And then once again, you know, some people get locked in their houses and they write books. Some of them get weird and they write comedy. And some of them get depressed and they write music.
And you never felt like you had to leave and go somewhere else to do your music? I mean, one of the things that we've heard is that people will go and then come back. Maybe they feel like they have to go somewhere else, and then they realize that somewhere else is actually not where they want to be, that home is here, and then they come back.
Yeah, you know, I was like, I am never going to live in this place. As soon as I can get out of here, I'm out of here. This winter is not for me. And then I had the chance to tour the world. I toured all over Canada. I toured all over the US, Europe and New Zealand and Australia. And like, I was like, there isn't a place better. Firstly, everybody's from somewhere. But then I was like, the people, my mom. Like, I'm not going to leave my mom.
What is it like when the phone rings and it's Good Morning America or the Today Show on the other line?
You know, I'm so grateful like, one of the things about living in Saskatchewan is that there are new opportunities that are available because of the internet. So then you're like, what is happening? Like, why is Good Morning America calling me? Because I just put a video on my phone. And I think that's one of the things that, like, lets me allow to keep staying, is that, like, my career isn't limited by my location anymore, because we have an airport and we have the internet.
What else do you need?
What else do you need? Just my mom. Done.
You read a lot about motherhood as well.
Yeah.
What drives you crazy about being a mom?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think it is a journey through chaos. It's limitless. But yeah, somebody asked me at the very beginning because I was a musician for a long time, and I just kind of fell into comedy. It wasn't like a plan I had, it was just something I did. And somebody asked me, what's the most annoying part about being a mom? And I was like, the most annoying part is that strangers approach my husband in public when he's just pushing a stroller to tell him how amazing he is. Literally. I have a job where I wish for applause. Where are my strangers approaching me?
That sets up this next tune that you're going to play.
Yeah, would you like me to play it now?
Tell us about what it is. I mean, in some ways you've told the story,
Yeah.
but what is this about?
This, it's a song, it was my first viral hit, Matt. It's called Such a Good Dad, and it's really about all the applause my husband gets. And I want to tell you, he is such a good dad.
You're saying that seriously?
That is a serious, but also, you know, and we learned this right away. Like when my husband when we first had our baby, he took off 2 months, and he strapped that baby to him in his little baby Bjorn carrier. And he went out in the neighborhood. And you know, because it's a community, he came home and he was like, I am a god. He's like, strangers, women are approaching me and be like, oh my God, look at that man. My baby daddy wouldn't do that. And like, look at you. And he's like, this is incredible. So we started laughing about this together, about this truth that, you know, I'll be like, you realize, if somebody's like in the grocery store being like, you're such an amazing dad. I'm like, you realize ain't no mom being approached in a grocery store to be like, you're out with your child in a grocery store? You are so amazing. What a mom.
All right, let's hear it.
All right.
Performing live at the Broadway Theatre. This is from her album, The Motherlode. It's Farideh, and yes, you are such a good dad.
I did the cooking and the cleaning and the groceries and the laundry, fed the cat and the dog, and someone stole my pocket. Got a gift for your mother, but she probably won't like, paid a bill, wiped her butt, broke up a couple times. Then I just about lost my mind, cause we both took the kids to the park. And someone said to you, you are such a good dad. You are such a good dad. I woke at 5 a.m. to screaming in the hallway, there was barf in the bed, so another load of laundry. Our kid was crying, so we talked about our feelings. You were sleeping, that's cool. But then you got up and your mom came over and she said, you are such a good dad. You are such a good dad, yes. I did the bath time, story time, the pee time, the snack time. I said, go to bed. Just about 1,000,000 times. Then I sat down to write this song, and you said, did you notice I mowed the lawn? You are such a good dad. You are such a good dad. Such a good dad. You are such a good dad. Yeah, such a good dad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Farideh. Yes, indeed, she is on the internets. You can find her on Instagram and TikTok. Her handle is I Love Farideh. This is, I said this, and people were surprised that I would admit such a thing. I've been through Saskatchewan many times, Regina. I've never been to Saskatoon before, and I am won over by this town. I love this place, and People, as I said, people have been very welcoming for us here, and you feel like you have learned something that perhaps you didn't know before you got here. Joining me now on stage, two people who are inviting the world to Saskatchewan and telling the story of their home through an Indigenous lens. Jenni Lessard is Métis from northern Saskatchewan. You could say she's a chef. That would not be nearly enough. You'll hear why in just a moment. Also joining us on stage is Honey Constant-Inglis, who is a Plains Cree artist, archaeologist, and heritage educator. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
As I say, you're inviting the world to this province and to this area. How big of a deal is, in particular, Jenni, Indigenous-led tourism in Saskatchewan right now?
Well, I think there's a saying in Indigenous tourism that nothing about us without us. And I, as a Métis person, I don't want to tell First Nation stories or go into communities and tell their stories for them. So that's super important. And I think there's a, pun intended, there's a huge appetite for Indigenous culinary and Indigenous tourism, and we have the people here ready to deliver those experiences.
What do you think is driving the interest in that, Honey? Well, why are people travel and look for experiences and look for information in any number of different ways, but why are people gravitating toward, as I say, Indigenous-led tourism?
I think already in today's session, it's a lot of stories. Like, words have meaning. And the more that we're sitting together telling these stories, the more that we realize there's these little invisible strings. So in my language, I'm Plains Cree from Sturgeon Lake. So we call it Wogotowin. And you all might know we have a school called Wogotowin. And it's a natural law teaching, which means all of my relations. It doesn't mean that you have to be blood to be family. It means that everyone is connected some way, shape, or form, whether it's biking on the roads, surviving the snow, or telling these stories. The more that we are realizing our own voice and reconciling with ourselves and healing ourselves and our communities and sharing that out, we're noticing that resiliency, we're noticing that fire, and we are just in welcoming people in, so that way we are able to have these stories led by us.
Let's talk about what that looks like. Jenni, you lead a trip called From Field to Shield. Tell me about that.
Well, I lived in Jasper, Alberta for 3 or 4 years as a youth, being a ski bum, and I participated in something called the Banff Jasper Challenge, or Jasper Banff, I can't remember which way Jasper Banff, and I thought, you know what, where I'm from, Prince Albert, that's about the same distance. Woo, go Prince Albert.
Love the shout out from the audience for PA.
I should say where I'm from, where I was born, and my parents moved us way further north when I was 2 months old. That's about the same distance from Prince Albert to L'Orange as Jasper to Banff. So I kept this kind of name in my mind, Field to Shield. So from Prairie Field to Precambrian Shield. And then they came to me actually, Adventure Destinations, who are an amazing company. Yay, Adventure Destinations, that provide experiences all over the north. And they basically let me create this culinary tour that starts in Saskatoon, and Honey is part of that. So we start out the first day in a good way. Mm-hmm. Honey leads us. Do you want to tell us how we do that, or welcome people to Treaty 6?
Yes, so I am very fortunate to be on a healing journey with myself. So my grandparents are residential school survivors, and part of my own healing journey is connecting to the medicines and understanding my connection to land. So I grew up on the landscape but not connected to the spirituality, and that was just St. Michael's Residential School. So how I do my entire being, I wrote my master's on it, even though it's archaeology, was stories. And part of it is smudging and understanding who we are and how we're connected to the land and how are we responsible to community members. So I get to start off this community travel event by, first of all, sharing who I am, where I come from, and why I do what I do. We start off with smudging. So I teach them about what smudging is and a little bit more understanding and dispelling myths. And then I tell them, we're putting down medicine for your travels. That way you can learn in a good way. If there's any questions you may have, we're already putting that medicine down for you to explore and understand and hopefully find something that you can connect to as well.
The power of those stories is really something, right? Like when you are able, and we've heard this over the course of tonight, when you're able to tell your story, what do you think happens?
I think even in my story, like when I was growing up, I went to a French immersion school first. And it was a decision made by my grandparents, so that way I would have an easier life if I didn't speak my language. But I'm very happy to say that I can learn, and I'm understanding when like elders talk, and I'm like, I know some of those words. But part of what I really enjoy about what I do for my job is I go into schools, I go into Saskatchewan, I do tourism, I do this. But at the core of it is understanding who I am and what role I have in community will go through in that relationship. And when we can understand that in ourselves, we can share that out. So part of what I do in tourism and in tours and everything else is finding out what is their role in that story, even though they never walked my path.
Jenni, what do you see as the power in stories? I mean, one of the things we heard earlier from Yann Martel is talking about there's a lot of good in the city, there's a lot of racism in the city as well. You have to, his point was you have to acknowledge that. You don't shy away from it. We talked about statistics when it comes to the homeless population and the staggering proportion of folks who are Indigenous who are homeless. If you're able to share stories, it can sound removed, but if you're able to talk to people and share stories, what do you think you can do to address what's at the heart of some of those issues?
Well, I think continuing the thread we started here, so after the smudge, right near your hotel, just outside on the riverbank, we get back in the bus and we drive to Batoche National Historic Site, which is the site of the Resistance. I would say it's the Métis heartland in Saskatchewan, and I'm very proud to be part of that community. So then I get to share my Métis heritage, and the guides take us, it's not that long ago. And I think that watching the guests' faces as they're like, wait, that was like yesterday, basically. And then going further north and spending 5 days in the community of Missinippi, which is adjacent to the community of Grandmother's Bay, which is part of the Lac Orange Indian Band, and learning from those community members, having language dinners, trapline tours. By the end of that experience, and the company that's hosting this is not an Indigenous-owned company, but they're right in the community, so obviously the storytellers are, and the culinary folks up there are. By the end, if you've shared a story and a meal, one or the other, but both, you can't go back from that, unless you're just a very hard, rotten person. In that case, don't come to Saskatchewan. But yeah. And
Can I ask you about the meal part? Just because food is this doorway to conversation and understanding, and you have this great knack for making people, when you talk about food, really hungry. Tell me about this. There's what is it, Hanwi Moon?
Yes.
Dinner?
Actually, I'm going to let Honey lead with that one, with some background.
So Hanwi is actually a Dakota word. I'm Cree, but it's another Indigenous group that is native to this land, so Treaty 6, homeland of the Métis. That nation, actually, as an archaeologist, I can tell you, at Wanuskewin Heritage Park, if you say that word properly in Cree, it's Wanuskewin. And it's that understanding that place has been a gathering place for thousands of years. As an archaeologist, I want to say 6,000 years. But as an Indigenous person, I want to say since time immemorial. For as long as we told stories, we have been on that landscape.
This is why people are trying to have it recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I could talk forever about that.
They could read your thesis.
Yeah. My thesis was written as a story, my story growing up here in Saskatoon. So it's very accessible. But for the most part, Hanwi, that word means night sun or moon. And when we originally planned this idea and we dreamed about what could this experience be, we thought about bridging Wanuskewin, that story, our people, our history, the landscape and the spirit that lives there, with people in our community. So if you don't know yet, Wanuskewin is not a city park, it's not a provincial park, it's not a federal park. Rather, it was a park born out of community saying, we need to protect this landscape. We need to protect the stories. And that's a whole other story I would love to tell you. But we noticed in the few years there that we weren't getting as many adults. Of course, we see a lot of little ones and they come in all excited. We love that. Busy season is chaos. But for adults, we wanted to kind of curate this visiting, this moment of having a meal, sharing a story, having a laugh, and then we go home and we bring that fire that we brought to this space and share it out into our community. Because for UNESCO, one of the things that they're going to do is come to our community and ask all of you and everyone else who knows about Wanuskewin, is this place worthy to protect? And my hope.
The audience says yes.
Yes. So the Hanmi Moon Dinner is actually a curated, beautiful experience where you
It's not just the dinner, let's just say that.
Yeah.
I'm a tiny part of this.
First of all, you see my beautiful face saying, hello, welcome. And then I kind of let you kind of get settled. And then we also start with a land acknowledgement, as usual, because when we understand where we are and what our role is, we can move forward in with intention. And then we start with a smudge. So everyone is welcome to participate or not participate, but the goal is to understand and dispel why we smudge or anything related to that. But we start off the night in a good way. We're opening up the space for questions, and that maybe, just maybe, you want to hold on to one thing that you heard and you're like, I'm going to save this for later. That prayer or that intention is set. And then I take you on a 45-minute walk.
To get really hungry.
Yeah, to get really, really hungry. Depending on how long we talk. At the beginning, I may have to walk us a little bit faster, but usually this last year, it's been really beautiful, where the landscape is just alive and the sunset is just happening. And we've seen many beavers and all of these things. And the way that I do my tours, I used to work there from when I was like 21 to 25. And then since taking a step back, I get to go back for these special events. So I have all of these experiences. I wrote my master's there. So the storytelling that I do is whatever happens on the landscape during the day. So I have no pre-plans. I just kind of go with our vibes and whoever comes to the space and what they're hoping to learn. And then, of course, we get down to the teepee village.
And our producer's there, Don Wasakase, who's here tonight.
Yeah, it helps me, keeps me on track, because the gifted name that my mushum, my grandfather, gifted me is Pagachastrumus, which translates to wild pony. So I get really excited and I talk nonstop. But when we get to the meal, I get to sit with you and we continue having the conversations. But the meal is what does most of my talking for me.
Yeah, when I had a restaurant in a little town called Birch Hills. Yay, Birch Hills! And moved to Saskatoon to do catering, and I had 2 dream clients that I wanted to just come asking me to cook for them, and it was the Saskatoon Public Library and Wanuskewin Heritage Park, and I ended up doing both of those things, and it was amazing. So I get to harvest from the land with tobacco offerings, and as, you know, if it's a really bad year, really drought year for certain plant nations, I won't harvest those. I'll get them from down south where I live now in Treaty 4 territory in the Capel Valley. But the main course is bison. The bison were reintroduced to the park in December 2019.
2020,
before pandemic, yeah. And so we have bison tenderloin with nettle sunchoke puree under it, a little smoked bison broth, and you enjoy that meal right in the teepee village where people actually would have prepared and eaten and feasted together.
I would like to say we're not eating our conservation herd.
We are not eating our conservation herd.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Our marketing manager, Andrew McDonald, would be chewing on his fingernails
Our
right
herd
now.
is for education and for heritage. We source our bison somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Locally sourced, amazing bison. Yes.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, just finally, there's a lot of generosity in the work that you're doing. I mean, you are, I don't know, the world is filled with some really hard stories, and it's easy for people to feel like there's not a receiving audience in some ways for good. Do you know what I mean? And what you're doing is putting something out there and trusting that it's going to be received by people who want to receive that, and to create something bigger and something better.
I think, okay. I think something that that I was thinking about during everyone's conversations today is that all of us want to be good. All of us want to do good. And in the way that Indigenous people survived in our resiliency, it's healing through laughter. It's healing through feeding people. It's healing through being hosts and visiting. And even in that word, like when you were talking about houselessness, for us, we call them homeless, right? Like they're not homeless, but houseless, because our home fires are in our spirit. Our home fires are the people that feed our spirit. Our home fires is what makes us feel strong. So when we say homeless, we're saying they don't have that. So we say houseless. We say our community members, our relatives on the street, they are just as valuable as the people who are sitting in this room, because all of us have the want to do good. And our history, again, read my thesis, all our history for so long, especially targeted in the prairies, has said, don't talk to each other. So what we're doing is we're saying, we're not going to do that anymore. We're talking to each other. And how are we related? So I've adopted all of you sitting here. I expect Christmas gifts.
I think, Honey, you were saying what was in my heart too. I think we think of capital T tourism a lot of the time, but it's hospitality, right, is the root. So it feels like a huge problem, and it is a huge problem, houselessness. But you can do a lot of small things day by day. My sister had an idea about 5 years ago, I think, to create care packages. So when we were going to visit our grandma in PA and we'd leave, we'd be coming over the bridge and we'd start crying, missing our grandma, and my mom would be like, Grandma made you these care packages, and we'd open it and it would be like a muffin paper and some string and a note and an apple, and we thought we wanted to give that to people that we might encounter that were in need. So we have these bags that are with us kind of all the time, winter and summer, because people are unhoused in the summer too, and it's not comfortable, right? Can you imagine having to wonder where you were going to go to the bathroom? That's awful. So we put them in clear packages so people can see what they're getting, and I don't serve them like suspicious house cookies, it's packaged granola bars and juice boxes, mini mitts, neck tubes, just anything that you, think about you, you might be on the street in 2 weeks. I hope you're not, but you could be, what you might want, and then we're caring for each other. And listening to people's stories too, but also don't be pushy, they may not even want that package, they may have already eaten today, so people are humans wherever they are.
I'm really glad to hear about the work that you're doing. It's important, but it feels set in this place, very specific to this place as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jenni Lessard is a Métis chef, culinary consultant from northern Saskatchewan. Honey Constant-Inglis is a Plains Cree artist, archaeologist, and heritage educator. And they have both been with us here on the stage at the Broadway Theatre in Saskatoon. This is a special edition of The Current from the Broadway Theatre. My name is Matt Galloway. It has been such a joy to be here with you in your city. We have one more tune to take us out. Please welcome back to the stage our musical guest, Jeffery Straker.
Thank you.
So you, like so many people, you're here, you leave, and then you come back. Exactly. You were living in Toronto for a good chunk of time.
Yeah, a good chunk of time.
What brought you home?
Oh, I sort of mentioned in that first song I sang, it was seeing this place from afar and really coming to really appreciate a lot of things about it that I simply never saw when I was here. They ultimately drew me back, and I also hadn't found love in Toronto.
I was going to say, there's also a love story to that, right? Tell us the love story.
Well, I moved back here, and I'm an out gay guy, and I would have thought that in Toronto, the pinkest city in the country, I would have found love, right? Not a chance. So I came back to Saskatchewan, and I met the one, Matt. He's my partner, Michael. He's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. We've been together for 4 years, and the geography and the people brought me back, and love's keeping me here. And I think, farming is kind of sort of a macho occupation. I think I met the only gay farmer in Saskatchewan, and he's mine.
I'm not
Matt.
entirely sure about that, but yes, continue.
He's mine. Yeah.
You're going to play another song for us to close us out. What are we going to hear from you now?
A song I wrote called "Sing Your Song." I co-wrote this with Lynn Miles, and it's a song for the dreamers, the hopers, the people who have a vision for making a place better. I think that describes Saskatchewan people to a T. They have such great dreams and hopes, and I think this tries to sum up part of that encouragement I want to give them to bring all that to life.
Live on stage at the Broadway Theatre is Jeffery Straker, and Sing Your Song.
There's a whole world inside this piano. Kid I'd explore and play. Used to dream of a name on a marquee, but I stopped dreaming those dreams one day. There was a fault line between who I once was and who I guess I became. Against my will, I strong. I was so afraid of getting it wrong, even if you think your voice ain't the best. That's okay, it's yours, go right ahead and sing your song. Oh, sing your song. If you told me your dreams, I wouldn't judge you, 'cause I've already stood in those shoes. I know what it's like to stand up there alone with everything to lose. Yeah, a song is a bit like lightning, and there's thunder when you open it wide. It's the gamble you take, you don't know what they'll say, and you know you got nowhere to hide. Looking back through present light, I was only running from myself, but I learned it's okay to not quite belong. Letting down your guard is how to be strong. I was so afraid of getting it wrong, even if you think your voice ain't the best. That's okay, it's yours, go right ahead and sing your song. Oh, sing your song. Yeah, sing your song. So tell me, are you one who's been waiting? Is tomorrow where you place in your bets? Keep on reciting those worn out storylines, pretending there won't be regrets. Oh, learned it's okay to not quite belong. Letting down your guard is how to be strong. I was so afraid of getting it wrong, even if you think your voice ain't the best. That's okay, it's yours, go right ahead and sing your song. Oh, sing your song.
Is the pride of Punishai, Saskatchewan, Jeffery Straker. His new album is called Great Big Sky. Thank you so much for being our musical guest. That is it for The Current from Saskatoon. Thank you to our amazing audience here in the Broadway Theatre. You're awesome. Oh my goodness. Want to thank as well everybody who joined us on stage and the people who make this program happen. I am the least important part of this team. We have a producer, Julie Chrysler, who put this whole thing together. Our director, Joanna DeRicci. The people who make us actually, our voices go through the microphone, our audio wizards, Austin Pomeroy and Chris Haynes. Jenna Leith, who's running these robot cameras that you've seen here, capturing this for broadcast on television. Senior producer Kathy Simon, our executive producer Lara O'Brien. This would not also be possible without the amazing team at CBC Saskatchewan, who've done extraordinary work in making us feel welcome here. This kind of stuff to me is like public broadcasting at its heart. This is what I love about my job at CBC Radio. We get to go out into your community. The thing that I say to people is that it's like Canadians explaining themselves to each other. We get to come to your community, we tell your stories, and we broadcast them out into the country, and hopefully people learn a little bit more about this place that we live in and the idea of Canada. So if you want us to come to your community, where should we go next? Email us, thecurrent@cbc.ca. Let us know where we should go, and maybe we'll roll into your town next. In the meantime, this has been so great. Thank you for being here with us in Saskatoon. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening to The Current, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. As I say, we love doing this stuff. We would be on the road, and if we could do it every single day, it would probably give the people who are in control of the CBC heart palpitations when I say that. But we would, because this is what we do, and this is what matters. So thanks so much for being here. It's cold, and it's Tuesday, and you could have been anywhere else, but you're here, and it means the world to us. We'll hear this tomorrow on CBC Radio, so tell your friends, and hopefully we'll see you soon. In the meantime, thanks for being so kind to us and welcoming us here. It's been so great to be here. Thanks again.